am so stinking excited, guys. So excited. I've been at this game for a while. You know, I've reviewed over 900 films on this channel alone, another, I don't know, 1,500 on written platforms throughout the years. And in that time, I've been blessed with a few screeners, whether that be physical screeners or more recently, digital. But never once until now have I received a physical screener to check out, and I have got that here with Amityville in Space. So I definitely want to thank the people over at October Coast and Wild Eye Releasing for sending me this film a little bit early to check out because, believe it or not, in general, I am a massive fan of the Amityville movies. Most of the movies in general, I don't think are really made that well per se, but I love the true story that came out of it. Two stories, actually. Every chance that I get, I watch one of these kind of corny, kind of B horror films that have the Amityville name attached to it because it's just good fun. And when I heard that they were doing it in space, of all places, going all out, you know, I had to check it out. Is it worth a watch, though? Let's figure that out. So Amityville in Space is pretty much what it sounds like. A priest ends up walking into the Amityville house after another one of its many supernatural events. And when he goes in, not only does the house lift from the ground and enter space, but it also travels to the year 3015, where a group of astronauts and scientists are studying and ultimately destroying black holes. And it turns out, one such black hole isn't just a mass of nothing. Instead, they find the Amityville house just floating there, and inside is a very dark presence, of course, that they might want to take care of first. So as far as campy, cheap B horror films are considered, this takes the cake. This is as cringy as you can probably imagine it to be, and honestly, it completely and utterly depends on what kind of person you are on if that'll work for you or not. Me, I can go either way. Usually if a film is cheap and it knows that it is cheap and it kind of makes some tongue-in-cheek jokes about that, I can absolutely enjoy a tacky movie like this. That's the whole thing about The Rise of Sharknado, right? A movie that is very much self-involved. It knows what it is and doesn't really care that it's massively this stupid thing. That's what I ultimately expected out of Amityville in Space. And to a degree, you do have some of that, but at the same time, I think that you have much more of a film that kind of feels like it's taking itself a little bit too seriously. Guys, bad movies that know that they're bad and have that self-actualization are amazing. Bad movies that think that they're actually good, though, those often have the most difficulties at the end of the day, and I'd say more often than not, this fell victim to that. And so I wasn't as engaged with the film as I hoped I would be. Now, I do have to praise one big thing going on here. They used the Amityville house. Not the real house, of course, but at least the visual of the house. So as much as I love watching Amityville movies, I skip a lot of the smaller spin-off films because those don't actually use the house. From what I understand, they'll make the claim that this doll, this clock, this piece of furniture in the movie at one point was in the Amityville house and now it's haunted. So it'll be like the Amityville clock or something, and it's dumb. There's no point of watching it at that point, you know? The house is a character in the movie, period. If it's not, it fails. So Amityville in Space has the house, and it's essentially a character as it should be. So that's good. Also, the interior of the house, it's not perfect, but I did feel as if the filmmakers, at least a little bit, scouted some houses out that had a somewhat similar blueprint, especially the front door, which if you know anything at all about the Amityville house, the real one, once you walk in, you have a staircase immediately to your right. Some movies have that, but some absolutely don't. This did, so, you know, whoever was in charge of picking places to film, kudos. Also, the poster for the movie. As cool as it looks, and I do think it looks really, really nice, I don't know what they were thinking changing the house. I mean, yeah, you got those quarter circle windows or whatever going on. They're iconic, absolutely, but they aren't the only thing that makes Amityville. The house does. And the house is in the movie. I don't know what this house is. That's a pet peeve of mine in a lot of the covers for a lot of the Amityville movies because the entire house, at least to me, is just as iconic as just the windows. It's a big house. It's a big, ominous house. But past those positives in general, as a film enthusiast and as a critic, this is the part where I have to dog on the film. And coming from a place where I know what a majority of people are looking for in film, this isn't it. Purely from a technical perspective, the visuals are horrible. From a lighting perspective, a lot of the color scale stuff is out of white balance. The set design of the interior of the spaceship that these scientists and astronauts are on is clearly like somebody's bedroom with, I don't know, aluminum foil strapped to the walls. Some of the audio work done on the demonic voices in the film is a little bit too hard to understand when they are speaking. And speaking of the same demonic forces, their look is just as fake as everything else. Halloween mask. I can't talk. I'm getting possessed by a demon. The visual effects, bringing back around to that, since this is a space movie. Some of the exteriors, seeing what's in space, is some of the worst stuff to see in the movie, as it just seems to be cut and paste transparent PNG images just sitting there in space, not moving at all, nor is the shot, which should have at least a little bit of wiggle to animate the scene. The story itself, I'm struggling with. I think what they were going for was kind of that basic sci-fi horror story where a group of astronauts, space explorers, run into an ancient evil that stalks them one by one in space because outside, nobody can hear you scream, right? To a degree, I get it, but I didn't think that the execution was as solid as they thought it would be. And because of that, I wasn't as engaged with a lot of what was going on here. If I would have personally made the film, I would have focused in on some of the humorous tongue-in-cheek moments that would have made some of those lesser areas stand out better, stand out as more unique. But as it is, it's a film that doesn't necessarily feel that fresh or new, and instead it's exactly as you might imagine it to be, a gimmick film on the Amityville house, which just so happens to be in space. If you're wondering about the DVD itself, the special features that it has to offer, the version that I was given, I don't know if there's going to be any other types of DVDs out there, but the special features that this has is very basic stuff like scene selection, trailers, and audio commentary from the director. Now, to be honest, I have to give that a listen. As a filmmaker myself, I love the art of film, I love the journey it finds itself on, how you get from point A to point B, especially if you're passionate about what you're doing. And you know, in today's day and age, you have extra precautions that you have to take when you're making a movie because of COVID, and an audio commentary might be pretty cool for that, so I'll definitely be checking that out. But for now, let's take a look at my final score for a second, which is unfortunately an F letter grade and final score of 26%, which as a whole isn't all that unpredictable. I think that anybody going into this movie isn't going to be expecting a solid blockbuster or horror film that will be the talk of the town, for instance. Everybody watching this is just going to be expecting trash. But again, depending on who you are, that might be your cup of tea. And if so, I'd have to pick Amityville in Space over a ton of the other smaller Amityville films. Just saying. Guys, Amityville in Space comes out to DVD and digital on July 19th of this year. So please let me know what you thought about the movie if you have seen it. And if you haven't, are you planning to? As for YouTube, you guys know what to do. Hit the like, hit the subscribe button, and hit the bell to be notified when I come out with my next review. Until then, peace out!